Paris, City of Light. It's not looking so bright for the Olympics starting later this week. Australia is sending 450 athletes to compete in 31 sports. Many of them are young women. Are these recent rapes and robberies in Paris casting a bit of a shadow over the Games?
Well, they are, and let's hope nothing else untoward happens, but that seems unlikely. Look, if you have a mega event like the Olympics, a city is just overwhelmed. So even a city the size of Paris becomes overwhelmed. And it's also like a honeypot, isn't it? So all sorts of nasty will come to that place knowing there are people who've come for the sport, they've got money in their pocket and they're ready to rob. And that's what happens when you run these mega events.
Well, Australia's Chief de Mission has advised Australian competitors not to go out on their own or wear their team uniforms. Now, she said, and I quote, "It is based on the security advice that we've received that just ensuring the safety of our athletes." Now, Gary, imagine warning athletes not to go out on the streets of Sydney during the 2000 Olympics. We'd never hear anything like this. Has our standard of normality dropped somewhat in the West over the last 24 years?
It may well, but I think it's more a reflection of the fact that, as I say, these mega events are such that it's almost impossible to police. So, for instance, you have the entire Paris gendarmerie plus some troops policing Paris closely, but it's almost impossible when you have millions of people moving around to not have lots of people who infiltrate and rob, rape, pillage and all the rest of it. I think it has to do with the size of the events. It's almost impossible to police. And in fact, I think I read this morning that the minister in charge has written a personal letter to the police and the troops to say this is going to be difficult. So he's anticipating how difficult it is to keep the peace in these extraordinary times and extraordinary events. So I'd put it down to that, the size of the event, as much as anything else.
Well, I mean, Sydney's Olympics was a comparably sized event and there were no terror warnings out for Australia. There was no one came to Australia believing they were in serious danger of walking the streets in their uniforms if they were competitors. And you could say the same thing about the Olympics before that and the Olympics before that. There's a long distance before you had this similar feeling of being unsafe around these major events. Is that because we've seen them targeted in increasing years? I mean, over the last 20 years, you can't deny that Paris has suffered a rise in things like Islamic terror, where we've had beheadings on the streets, there have been stabbings. They've got a significant problem with crime surrounding what were the slums, but they've moved the slums on, but the crime is still there. This does feel different though, Gary. I mean, the people are talking about it everywhere. There is definitely more concern for safety than there have been in previous Olympic Games, especially if you go back 20 years.
Yeah. But you raise now a different question, a very important question, which is the number of mainly Muslim immigrants in France. Young men especially, who don't play by the same rules and who may well be unemployed and who find it, they're able to rob and also probably have much less pride in a woman's place and treat women very, very badly. So, and I'm choosing my words carefully here, the fact is that France and much of Northern Europe is in trouble because of its Muslim immigration over several decades. So you're right, I'm trying to look at two events here. One is a mega event and how difficult it is to police. Two, it's to police a mega event in the situation where you have a large number of especially young men who don't play by the same rules as anywhere else. They may not have, their behaviour may not be as bad in their countries of origins, but once they get to the West, they have a disdain for the liberal West and they play by their own rules, and they're very nasty rules. That's what we're seeing played out, I think, in Paris today.